Hello, good evening and a very warm welcome to the hot seat. In the hot seat, amongst a sea of controversies and resignations, we have that very senior and outspoken politician, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena. Very good evening to you, Mr. Gunawardena.
Good evening, Faraz.
And thank you very much for coming on the hot seat. But there's so much of things going on that we didn't seem necessary to write things down because there are so many. We can just throw one stone and it'll come up with some big fraud. Now then, but can I ask you, it's 2 years now. What has the joint opposition been doing apart from sort of apparently sitting on ice? Is that what we've been doing? What have you been doing? 2 years.
Not really. 2 years of parliamentary time has passed for so many important issues for the government. The joint opposition has established itself initially as the joint opposition, the strongest and the largest group in parliament. Of course, the Yaha Palanaya, as it was called, tried all its best efforts to crush or split the JO, which they have failed. Why? Because they did not want any criticism of their work and the exposure of their frauds, which the JO took up issues, just like in the media. The JO was the members who stood up for the people of the country, the central bank issue and so many other issues. So the JO's record, and we did tell about Honorable Finance Minister, not recently, before his first year tenure, that he's messing up, mismanaging, and he's up to various decision making which is unbecoming of the office. These issues were discussed in Parliament because of JO.
Did the JO do all this so that they could then strike their own deal with the government and with the investigative bodies to stop those investigatory bodies from looking into their own misdeeds?
No issue as such.
No?
We were
committed. Is that just me using a journalistic flourish?
Yeah, you're free to use any flourish.
Yes.
But the issue was JO was very clearly emerging as the biggest opposition group, challenging the government. The only group that was challenging the government on taking wrong policies. Anything good, if it came, we never objected to. We took up the issues, and if not for that, the government would have bulldozed by now, crushing much of the welfare issues of rights of the people by now.
And you think that you all are doing a good job?
Yeah, we are doing a good job. That's why we have to face three fronts. One, the government. One, the TNA, which is also with the government. The other, the JVP. All are targeting on JO. Why? Because the JO is advancing. It is established after the May Day that we are the largest political group able to call for a mammoth gathering, headed by, of course, the former president. Our May Day, overwhelmed went...
Is that... Okay, I saw those crowds, and I'm not going to say that it was an apparition, because clearly it wasn't. But do you think all these people, much of them, were sort of incentivized to come there, to have a day out, a day in the park, an outing in the park?
And it can't be so, because people had to walk a long way. They were not given official buses. The trains, all are working towards the green May Day and the blue May Day. So the people did come because people are faced with problems. Rising cost of living, closure of small establishments, various extra political victimization moves of the government, and not holding the elections. These are issues for the people.
And now not holding elections. Who do you hold responsible for that?
The government headed by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister has been giving so many answers in Parliament, pledging we will have elections, we will have elections. 2 years have gone. Local government elections, including the city of Colombo, which is the capital, not been held. What more do you call this Yahapalane? Luckily, Venerable Sobita is not alive. Had he been alive,
had he been alive, what?
He would have told them what he would have thought of them. That is what the people are saying today. There are no
Why can't you tell them that? Will they not listen to you?
They are listening, but I am saying it's out of respect for the Venerable who led the Yahapalana struggle for them. It is because of the Venerable Sobita that they were lucky enough to get into office. After promising everything that was pledged. What has come? Nothing. 19th Amendment only sharing up power for the Prime Minister and total chaos in the country with the commissions.
Do you feel that there was more corruption then than there is now? Or is it the other way around?
No, today of course it is very alarming and shocking, the corruption, 1 or 2 issues that have been exposed. It is unprecedented. And the way the government is trying to cover up, every move possible to cover up shows there's some more that they would like to cover up. You see?
Well, they've tried pretty hard with the bond. Do you think the bond will come to a natural conclusion?
Bond is on. They are facing the target, but bond, we all know that initially there were some inquiry files that were sent to the Aegis Department, which is still lying, and no action has been taken. The Commission is a reporting agency. That was also sort of a platform, but still an escape platform. But badly they got exposed. The Finance Minister had to go. How many others will go is a big question mark. But we would like the entire government to go, because they have failed, mismanaged the economy, and withdrawing. And
what about if we were to pose you this question, should they go because they haven't been able to prove in a court of law the claims of corruption against the previous government?
That is one issue. If you make charges, you make utterances, you have to establish. Secondly, the time taken of 2 years in managing the economy, total chaos on all fronts, in foreign exchange, reserves, our borrowing, where we have been investing, where cost of living, employment generation, all fronts. Now for us to take a good indicator. 4 days ago, New York Times had a news. Sri Lanka, foreign minister resigns, corruption charges. This is the international news that has spread. Do you think this government can pull us out of this crisis?
Well, he was the best finance minister in part of Asia. Why can't he use that to save himself?
When so many best awards given to so many different people in the world, but performance is something that has to be judged by a nation.
On that note, we're going to take a small break, and we'll see you on the other side of that break. Don't go away. After all, this is the Hot Seat. And good evening, and welcome back to the Hot Seat. In the Hot Seat today is Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, and he's proving to be an accommodating witness person here. Tell me, the bond. Have you, as part of the joint opposition, have you all finished with the bond now? Or
No.
What are you doing then?
No, the bond issue, as I just mentioned, has not ended. There is a presidential commission which will be reporting. Thereafter, the President has to make a decision according to the law.
Have you had discussions with the President?
We have not had discussions on this issue, but we have been telling the President that he should act. One instance was when we were pressurizing the President, and his own Prime Minister and Cabinet was also pressurizing him not to reappoint Arjuna Mahendran, who was the boss who created this mess and this biggest fraud on the central bank. President gave in, but for us, we know that they've been dragging too long. There was the COPE 1, COPE 2 report, and so many debates in Parliament.
What about the Footnote Club?
Footnote Club has badly got exposed.
Has the Flowery Club also got exposed, do you think?
No, I think mainly now the Footnote Club is trying to turn their targets to take a different issue so that the public would forget on this. They're taking on Vijayadasa Rajapaksa. That is an issue, separate issue altogether.
Right.
But the bond issue is the crux of our central bank.
What's your own take? Because we didn't have you on the network during that time. What's your own take on the resignation of the former finance minister and one-time foreign minister?
Of course, it was quite obvious that he had to go. He was resisting for a few days, but he had to go because our no confidence motion, which was given in, had the Speaker given us a date to take it up, definitely the finance minister would have lost in Parliament.
When one is the finance minister and then when one is the foreign minister, does it sort of automatically raise your risk portfolio? In the sense, do you need to have the same level of security that you enjoyed as a minister, but now you are a backbencher?
Yeah, some people cannot be without security.
Because you need them to open and close the gates, or what?
I don't know why what they are doing, opening or closing the gates, or waiting till he returns again, like other ministers, back to cabinet. Waiting along, we'll have to wait a long time. But let us not forget that the finance minister and the foreign minister is virtual number 3 and 4 in any country. Those are the two most important after the ministry, Prime Minister's office. Now, shifting Honorable Karunanayake from finance to foreign affairs and handing him over lotteries showed that he still wanted to carry something of the finance ministry. I mean, this is, I think it had never happened in our...
We notice your apparent easy relationship with your colleagues, like there's that photograph of Mr. Karunanayake and yourself and Richard Badadine and
Swaminathan.
And Mr. Swaminathan. You know, there they were, all of you all together. But did you have to let this errant member come so far? Could you all not have met him in the chambers privately, or gone to his penthouse, which is only not very, it's very easy to go there from the old Parliament, and said to him, listen chaps, you know, you guys, you must go, because you've been caught with your pants down. Did you have that sort of a conversation with
I
him?
could have. I mean, I would have liked to go to the penthouse to see how the penthouse is. Never been to this area, but we had to come a long way from Diyamanna to old Parliament surroundings. And if we went to see penthouse, so many other questions also could have been asked about penthouse.
What was the difficulty there? Why did Mr. Karunanayake have to go? Is it because is it because of the way he gave his evidence, or is it that actually he had no other explanation than just to say that it was members of his family, and you know, I'm now resigning in the greater interests of good governance and democracy and all that. Is that true?
I don't agree with that, what he said, when he had a lot of things to say. Of course, we all know that the central bank issue is not just one person. There's so many who are party to or who should have been questioned. But if in the process, of course, it might happen, might not happen. But the issue is that Honorable Karunanayake could not face the no confidence motion and the public criticism, the media exposing so many issues on this very specific bond scam and the inquiry that is on.
On that note, we're going to go in for another short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Good evening and welcome back to the Hot Seat. Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, that very vociferous critique, is here. Mr. Gunawardena, just a side question. How are your vocal cords doing? Have you been shouting again?
No, I never shout.
Oh, it's just natural?
It's natural.
Good. All right. Well, Mr. Karunanayake, we'll be back again to Mr. Karunanayake. How come he gave evidence, then he came out and he found a battery of media people waiting out there, many of them cameramen and so on, and it was I think they had made a collective decision to let the minister have his party piece, and so he said what he said, but he seemed to be rather I hope this rather Chandi at the end, because it didn't match with what his demeanor was inside, and when he came out he proceeded to treat the media and the Attorney General's Department as a bit of a punching bag. But of course we are used to all this business.
Right.
We're very used to it. But tell me in a nutshell, is it that he's just being taken off temporarily to keep the public sort of happy, only to return? It's a bit like they say, Michael Jackson has left the stage or left the building, so has Elvis Presley. But in this case, Ravi Karunanayake shall return. Is that what will happen?
Of course, with this government, I think that is not an impossibility.
But what
today we have seen the Foreign Minister, Honorable Marapana,
yes,
of course respected lawyer in the legal field, returning to office after leaving the cabinet. And a few months ago he took up office. But so when you resign and when you quit over an important issue, it is surprising that individuals come back and accept ministerial office. What for us would have been the other way around?
Yeah.
Honorable Karunanayake not resigning, faces the vote of no confidence, loses. What would have happened? He would have been sacked by the President, or government would have been in serious crisis in Parliament. If any other minister faces the same, if he quits, why is he quitting? I do not agree with the government, or I respect the government, and I leave without embarrassing the government, blah, blah, blah. But all this is forgotten when people come back. So I don't rule out Ravi Karunanayake coming back again. Maybe there's another different portfolio. If he's offered, is he not going to take?
He shouldn't, should he?
Yeah, he should not.
In a case like this, what should he have done, ideally?
But the matter before him is not over. This is the issue. This is the issue. And it's a national crisis, the central bank bond scam.
I want to ask you this. If Mr. Karunaka was, let's say, the Minister of Indigenous Medicine, I'm just making it up, okay, and Mr. Aloysius was a dry fish seller, and the dry fish seller paid the rent, and Mr. Karunaka's family accepted it, would there be as grave a conflict of interest as it is now?
I think it would have, though he wouldn't have been holding the finance portfolio, it would have led to the similar criticism and exposure. He is also not only Minister of Finance or Minister of Foreign Affairs. He declares himself the deputy leader of the UNP, the governing party of the country. In his speech, he repeats it quite a number of times. Why? He wants to say, I'm the number 2 of this government. So whether he would have held indigenous medicine or Ayurveda or any other,
it does matter.
Does not matter.
Joe Public, whatever the nature of Joe Public's business,
Very much.
cannot possibly be in a situation where he is bribing or attempting to bribe or give some form of inducement to a cabinet minister. Is that it?
Yes, and then his evidence, I think, whenever one gives evidence, if one says the evidence that was given created the whole situation, I mean, made it worse, I think.
Yes. But how long more? Do you think this Parliament will run its full term?
Of course, as far as that's what I was trying to say. This government came to power promising Yahapalana and, good governance, a very vibrant democracy. Now those words have been just, put to the past. There is no vibrant democracy. Government is going at the people. 1 month ago, the strikers were manhandled by thugs. And the leader of the house tells the parliament, I do not see. Where was it? Was there any incident like that? Complaints not been implemented. There's a police commission sitting. What is the police commission doing? Where is the protection to life of any individual today?
Are you enjoying the expectation of all these things being delivered to the country? Are you then sort of saying that under the previous administration these matters were not possible at all?
No, the promises made is the pledge on which one comes, one implements. Of course, we have seen so many governments coming and going, but this government I don't think can survive the present crisis. They have suppressed democratic institutions, all elections in the country. They are on warpath with the universities. They are on today warpath with the working people. Of course, they are offering everything, Hambantota, which they condemn, Port City, which they condemn, of the last government, being offered on a much more better terms for the other side than our side. How can they go on? After all this, the economy is still collapsing.
In spite of all this?
In spite of all this, with the IMF pumping in, still the economy is collapsing. They are unable to pay the poor people in the dry zone today, from dry zone to the north, the compensation that is paid for the farmers. The people who suffered under the floods, government is unable to pay or restore their life or houses. I can go on with a list. They're trying to cut on the poorest of the country, Samurdi.
And what about the joint opposition? Are they going to become more proactive,
We will be proactive. We will force the government to holding of local government and provincial elections. We are not going to allow them any longer to deviate and violate the Constitution. This is the right of every voter of our country, irrespective of whichever political party. We want the elections and we are going to press them.
We want the elections and we are going to press them. You heard it right here on the hot seat with Mr. Dinesh Gunawardene. Thank you very much, Mr. Dinesh, for being in the hot seat, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it from the hot seat. Take care. Good night.